The rain beat against the prison's iron window like a sad metronome. Inside, the smell of damp metal and disinfectant mingled with the held breath of dozens of women learning to survive the silence. Emily Parker sat on the edge of her cement bed, her fingers distractedly tracing the blue line on the worn-out blanket. She was 24, with pale skin that had lost its sunlit glow and eyes of a deep brown, as if they held all the answers no one had wanted to hear. Before this, her life was made of books, coffees, and plans to study design in Chicago. Now, every second was measured by the grating of doors and the guards' rough voices. When the clock in the hallway struck 9, she heard the echo of a different heel, firm, rhythmic, confident. Emily looked up, and through the bars of the waiting room, she saw a woman in a navy blue suit walking toward the interview cell. The air seemed to change temperature with her presence. The badge swung, Olivia Hartman, attorney. She was 27, with light brown hair pulled into a bun that let a rebellious strand escape at the nape of her neck. Her green eyes did not ask for permission to see, they pierced the surface of things with a serene, yet sharp, attention. "Emily Parker?" she asked, her voice low, precise, almost a whisper trained to calm storms. Emily nodded, surprised. She had expected a tired public defender, not a young woman with the scent of lavender and courage in her gestures. In the small visiting room, separated by a scratched glass panel, the two observed each other in silence for long seconds. The distant sound of a gate closing echoed like a reminder of where they were. Olivia opened her briefcase but delayed taking out the papers. First, she studied Emily's face. "I read your file." She rested her chin on her hand, thoughtful. "There are many flaws here. Does that mean you believe me?" Emily asked, in a tone that sounded more fragile than she would have liked. Olivia looked up and smiled almost imperceptibly. "It means I still believe in the truth." For a moment, the tension around them seemed to dissolve. Emily noticed how the cold light of the lamp reflected on the glass, sketching Olivia's silhouette over her own. A fused reflection, two faces overlaid by a trick of the light. She felt an involuntary warmth rise to her face. Olivia noticed. She pretended to search for a pen in her bag, but the slight tremor in her fingers betrayed that she, too, perceived something, a faint vibration, the kind of energy that precedes change. As they talked, Emily recounted fragments of her story, the job at the cafe, the turbulent relationship with the ex-boyfriend who now accused her of an absurd robbery, the night of the crime she swore she did not commit. Olivia listened without interrupting, her gaze fixed, her jaw tense, like someone holding a silent promise within. "I can't pay for a private lawyer," Emily concluded in a whisper. "But they said you might take pro bono cases." Olivia took a deep breath. The sound of the rain outside thickened, drumming against the room's windows. "I do. Yes." She closed the briefcase slowly. "And it's not out of charity. It's because I want to prove that the system can also be wrong, and correct itself." There was a moment when neither of them spoke. Emily simply observed the outline of Olivia's hands, delicate yet firm hands that seemed designed to hold difficult truths. Olivia, in turn, fixed on Emily's expression, on the way she pressed her lips together to contain her fear. It stirred something in her that had no name. On her way out, Olivia passed through the narrow corridor again. Emily, behind the bars, followed her with her gaze. The sound of the heels faded away but kept echoing inside her, like a beat that refuses to cease. That night, lying on the cold bed, Emily could not sleep. The memory of Olivia crossing the corridor returned like a movie scene, the loose strand of hair, the scent of lavender, the implicit promise in every spoken word. For the first time in weeks, she did not feel completely alone. Across the city, Olivia was also not sleeping. The rain had stopped, but the sound persisted in her mind. On her desk, Emily's file was open, full of annotations. Inconsistencies, she had scribbled next to the name of the accuser's ex-boyfriend. She closed her eyes, trying to convince herself that her restlessness was purely professional. But when she remembered Emily's gaze, that gaze which seemed to apologize for existing, something in her chest moved with force. The next day, she would return to the prison. She would say she had new evidence, or at least hope for it. But perhaps the real reason was more intimate, the desire to understand why, among so many voices she had defended, this was the only one she could not forget. As dawn fell over New York, Emily turned in her bed and looked at the barred window. A sliver of moonlight crossed the floor, drawing a silver rectangle over her feet. By instinct, she reached out her hand and traced the outline of the light, imagining she was touching Olivia's face. Across the city, Olivia, sitting on the edge of her bed, made the same gesture, the same unconscious movement, the same trace in the air. As if, for a second, the two shared the same dream. And when the cell clock marked 3 in the morning, Emily smiled for no apparent reason. Something was changing. The metallic sound of the gate opening echoed in the prison's inner courtyard, and Emily lifted her face. That noise, which had so often meant the end of a day identical to all the others, that morning brought something different, the expectation of seeing her again. Olivia crossed the corridor with firm steps, carrying with her a faint scent of coffee and recent rain. The blue suit had been replaced by a light gray set, simpler, but her gaze, that gaze which seemed to see through everything, remained the same. "Good morning, Emily." The voice sounded calm, but with a slight warmth that had not been there before. "Good morning, Doctor." Emily smiled, somewhat awkwardly. "Olivia," she corrected, setting the briefcase on the table. "I think we can dispense with the formalities now." The way she pronounced her own name sounded more like an invitation than an instruction. Emily repeated it softly, like someone sampling something rare. "Olivia." Over the following days, the meetings became routine. Olivia spent hours with Emily in the small visiting room, reviewing testimonies, photos, and poorly written reports. The two leaned over the same pages, so close that the discreet scent of lavender mixed with the smell of the prison's cheap soap. With each new discovery, a shared smile; with each contradiction in the case file, a knowing look. One afternoon, when the evening light slanted in through the barred window, Olivia allowed herself a pause. She took off her shoes, sighing. "I don't think I ever imagined practicing law barefoot." She laughed, and the light sound made Emily laugh too. "It suits you," Emily replied without thinking. And when she realized what she had said, she averted her eyes. Olivia did not comment, but the blush on Emily's cheeks was stored in her memory like a silent photograph. The following week, Olivia managed to get authorization for Emily to participate in a supervised reenactment. The two traveled in an official car to the small town where the crime was said to have happened. The sky was overcast, and the cold road wind made Olivia's hair come loose from her bun. Emily glanced at her, trying to decipher what lay behind that professional serenity. "You seem different outside the prison," Emily said after a few minutes of silence. "Different how?" "Human," she replied, smiling timidly. Olivia raised an eyebrow, amused. "I hope that's a compliment." "It is." Emily looked out the window. "And rare." They arrived at the house where the alleged robbery had occurred. The place was abandoned, covered in leaves and dust. Olivia helped Emily out of the car, their hands touching for a moment. It was brief, but enough for both to pause for a second, as if time had stumbled. Inside, Olivia observed every detail while Emily walked hesitantly through the rooms. "It was all dark that night," she said, pointing to the broken window. "I just came to get my things." Her voice faltered. He appeared suddenly. Olivia approached slowly. "You don't have to continue." Her voice was a shelter. But Emily insisted, her eyes moist. "He said if I broke up with him, he would ruin me. I ran, I tripped, and then I only remember the sirens." Olivia stood there, a few inches away, watching fragility and strength coexist on the same face. She wanted to say something, anything, but the knot in her throat wouldn't allow it. Instead, she just raised her hand and brushed a strand of hair from Emily's face, a gesture so instinctive that neither of them realized how long it lasted. The accompanying officer coughed discreetly, breaking the spell. Olivia took a step back, resuming her professional tone. "Let's write everything down, okay?" she said, trying to control her breathing. Back in the city, the tension seemed denser, but also more alive. Olivia began working entire nights at the office, reworking time calculations, analyzing security cameras. Emily sent her short notes through the public defender, simple phrases, but laden with something unspoken. "Thank you for believing in me. I hope you are taking care of yourself." One day, while visiting Emily, Olivia brought a small gift hidden in her briefcase, a hot coffee from her favorite place, the same one where she had worked before being arrested. "I shouldn't, but I thought you needed a taste of freedom," she said, handing the paper cup through the glass. Emily held it with both hands, inhaling the aroma. The smell transported her to another time. "You have no idea what this means to me." Olivia lowered her head, touching the glass with her fingertips, as if she wanted to pass through it. "I imagine more than I should." That night, as she left the prison, Olivia stopped under the awning and watched the rain fall. She thought about everything she was risking, her reputation, the start of her career, perhaps even her heart. But something inside her said that continuing was inevitable. Days later, she received news that a contradictory testimony could reopen the case. She scheduled a meeting with the prosecutor and, the same day, returned to the prison to tell Emily. The two sat face to face, their faces separated by a glass that seemed increasingly symbolic. "This could change everything," Olivia said, with a new gleam in her eyes. "But it will be difficult." "I know," Emily replied. "And even if it doesn't work, thank you for trying." "Emily." Olivia began, but hesitated. The pause carried the weight of everything they could not say. Emily placed her palm against the glass, and Olivia did the same on the other side. The warmth of one seemed to pass through the coldness of the other. "When all this is over," Olivia murmured. "What?" Emily asked in a whisper. Olivia took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on her. "We'll talk outside of here." The guard announced that time was up. Olivia stood up, collected her briefcase, but before leaving, she looked back. Emily was still there, her hand on the glass, her eyes shining between hope and fear. Outside, the cold wind swept leaves across the courtyard, and the sky seemed clearer. Olivia knew that promise, "We'll talk," carried the weight of an uncertain future, but also the sweet breath of possibility. And when she got into the car, the sound of the engine muffled the last phrase she whispered to herself. Tomorrow. The day Emily was temporarily transferred to the courthouse marked the beginning of something neither of them could any longer pretend did not exist. Olivia had secured authorization for her to attend the preliminary hearing in person, a small, but symbolic victory. It was the first time Emily would breathe free air in months. The sun that morning seemed new. The clouds parted over the New York skyline, and the golden reflection in the building windows painted the kind of scene that, in another context, would be mundane. But for Emily, every beam of light passing through the escort car window was a vivid reminder of everything that could still be recovered. Olivia, sitting beside her in the back seat, pretended to review documents, but her eyes insisted on getting lost in the landscape, and in Emily's profile. When they arrived at the courthouse, the atmosphere was heavy. Olivia knew the prosecution would try to destabilize the testimony. Emily, for her part, trembled discreetly, her hands clasped in her lap. Olivia leaned in and spoke softly. "Breathe. Remember what you told me about the cafe where you worked? That it felt right when the place was full and the clatter of cups mixed with the voices. Imagine that now." Emily laughed lightly, unable to help it, "You're terrible with metaphors, Olivia." "But it worked," Olivia replied, and the corner of her mouth yielded into a smile. During the hearing, Olivia showed firmness and intelligence. She questioned the flaws, pointed out contradictions. And when the judge ended the session, Emily watched her with a mix of admiration and disbelief. She had never seen anyone fight for her like that. Outside, the weather had changed, dense clouds covered the sky, and the smell of rain was inevitable. One of the escort car's tires blew out before they even left the parking lot. The guard went to call for help, leaving them under the awning, alone, for a few minutes. The rain started fine, then turned into a curtain. Olivia took off her jacket and placed it over Emily's shoulders, the warm fabric still carrying the light scent of lavender. "You'll catch a cold. I think I've forgotten what it's like to be in a real rain." Emily reached out her hand, letting the drops run over her fingers. "It's beautiful, isn't it? That sound." Olivia looked at her, the wet hair sticking to her forehead, the almost childlike smile in the face of ephemeral freedom. "Yes. Beautiful." A distant clap of thunder cut through the air, and Emily took a step back, seeking shelter. Olivia also stepped back but ended up brushing against her. The touch was brief, shoulder against arm, warmth through the damp fabric. Neither of them moved for a second. "Olivia," Emily murmured, without the courage to finish. "I shouldn't be here, I know," Olivia replied, but she did not move away. The sound of the rain dominated everything, as if the world had shrunk to fit into that narrow space. The guard had not yet returned. The streets, almost empty. Time suspended. Emily took a deep breath, her heart racing. "Do you really believe everything will be all right?" she asked, trying to change the course, but her voice came out shaky. Olivia took a long time to respond. "I want to believe." And then, lower, "And I want you to get out of here to live." "And you?" Emily asked, looking at her directly. "What will you do when this is over?" "Haven't thought about it yet." Olivia averted her gaze. "Maybe, start something new." Emily gave a half-smile. "Like a new case." "Like a new life," Olivia corrected, and only then realized how much more personal that sounded than it should have. The silence returned, dense, vibrant. Emily felt an unfamiliar impulse, not of escape, but of approach. And, without calculating, she raised her hand to adjust the wet strand of hair falling over Olivia's face. The touch was light, but enough to make them both hold their breath. Olivia's eyes rose slowly, and for a moment, there was no lawyer and client, right and wrong, freedom and prison. There were just two women trying to understand what drew them so close. The rain ceased gradually, and the sound of another car's engine approached. Emily lowered her hand, her heart racing. Olivia took a deep breath, about to step back, but hesitated. In an almost imperceptible gesture, Emily moved a little closer, close enough for their breaths to meet. The kiss happened like a whispered confession, delicate and urgent. Brief, but intense enough for time to lose its meaning. A touch of lips wet from the rain, a promise neither of them dared to say aloud. When they parted, their eyes still sought each other, confused, dazzled. Emily gave a trembling half-smile. "I think we just complicated everything." "I think we did," Olivia replied, her voice hoarse. "But I don't regret it." The guard appeared at the edge of the parking lot, hurried, calling them to the replacement car. The spell was broken. Olivia retreated a step, straightened her jacket, and returned to her professional posture. Emily understood the gesture, but could not help feeling the absence of that moment like a physical void. During the journey back, they barely spoke. The sound of the engine and the droplets on the window was the only music. Olivia kept her eyes on the road, but her mind kept returning to that kiss, the taste of rain, the brief warmth, the fear of having crossed a line. Emily, beside her, pretended to look out the window, but her heart beat out of rhythm. She didn't know if she wanted Olivia to say something or if she just needed to hold on to the silence. Each memory of the touch brought a guilty joy and a sweet pain, like a newborn secret. When they arrived at the prison, Olivia got out first. The door closed behind Emily, and the distance returned, concrete, cruel. Olivia avoided looking back, but heard her call out softly. "Olivia." She stopped. Turned slowly. Emily was being led away by the guards, her face half hidden under the hood. Even so, their eyes met for an instant, and what was said there, without words, was stronger than any promise. Olivia merely responded with a slight, discreet nod, but one laden with everything she could not say. That night, alone in her apartment, she turned on a single light over the table and opened the case file again. The pages were damp at the edges, as if the rain had been trapped between them. She touched the paper and, for a moment, felt the same shiver as from Emily's touch. In the prison, Emily leaned her forehead against the cold wall and smiled to herself, remembering the rain, the jacket, the kiss. The impossible that, for a moment, had become real. And even though the fear of tomorrow loomed between them, what vibrated in silence was the certainty that something bound them together, something no sentence could erase. The following days were a succession of heavy silences. Olivia locked herself in the office until late, the lights shining on piles of documents she already knew by heart. She tried to convince herself that what had happened in the rain was just a mistake of impulse, a moment of fragility. But every time the wind blew through the window, bringing the smell of wet earth, it was as if the kiss was happening again. Emily, within the gray walls of the prison, relived the scene in her dreams. Sometimes, Olivia's touch was just a memory, other times, it felt so real she would wake with a racing heart and trembling hands. The world inside did not forgive distractions, and the feeling now growing in secret was as dangerous as it was liberating. A week later, Olivia returned to the prison. The final hearing was approaching, and new evidence had emerged, recovered messages from Emily's ex-boyfriend's phone, veiled threats, promises of revenge. Hope was breathing again. But between papers and protocols, hung something unspoken, a distance neither of them knew how to fill. "You don't need to visit me so often anymore," Emily said, feigning lightness. "You've already done more than anyone would." Olivia looked up. "Are you dismissing me?" "Trying to protect you," Emily replied. "People talk. They say you're too involved. And you're telling me this because you care what they say." Emily hesitated. "Because I care about you." The silence that followed was dense, almost palpable. Outside, the rain began to fall again, as if the sky were repeating a pattern both already knew by heart. The sound of the drops hitting the glass mixed with the two women's held breath. "Emily, that day." Olivia began, but her voice failed. "I shouldn't have let it happen." "So you regret it?" "It's not that simple." "It never is." Emily lowered her head, her fingers trembling on the table. "But sometimes what's right also hurts." Olivia closed her eyes, trying to gather the strength to say what she needed. "I don't want anything to jeopardize your case. What happened between us could be used against you." "Against me?" "What happened between us," Emily interrupted firmly, "was the only true thing I've felt since I lost my freedom." The sincerity in her voice shattered any defense. Olivia felt her heart tighten, the air grow thin. She wanted to cross that glass, hold her, but remained motionless. Days later, the rumor arrived, the prosecutor had requested an investigation into Olivia's conduct. They alleged improper personal involvement with a client. The news spread through the courthouse with the speed of a gale. Colleagues whispered in the corridors. The head of the firm called her in for a formal talk. "You understand the gravity, Olivia?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "Even if there's no proof, the appearance is enough." She nodded silently. "And if it's true," she ventured to say. "What if I really do care about her?" The man sighed. Then pray that she's innocent. Because only that can save you. That night, Olivia left the building and walked aimlessly through the city. The cold autumn air, the noise of the cars, the reflection of lights in puddles, everything seemed distant. She entered a small cafe, the same one where Emily worked before prison. The aroma of roasted coffee filled the air, bringing memories. She ordered a cappuccino and watched the steam rise, as if an answer might emerge from it. Across the city, Emily received an unexpected visitor, her ex-boyfriend, handcuffed, being led in to testify. She saw him for a few seconds, through a corridor. He smiled with the corner of his mouth, a cold smile. And in that instant, Emily understood he had done it not out of anger, but for the pleasure of destroying her. Hours later, Olivia appeared, her eyes tired, her coat soaked with rain. She sat down before her, and for a moment, neither spoke. "I could lose my license, Emily," she said, her voice low. "They're investigating me. Because of me. Because of us," Olivia corrected. "And yet, I would do it all again." Emily closed her eyes. When she opened them, there were contained tears, but also something new, strength. "Then promise me one thing. Anything. That you'll fight until the end. Even if you have to forget me." Olivia fell silent, her gaze fixed on Emily's mouth, on the memory of what they had been for a moment. "Don't ask me that. I'm asking because I love you." The words came out in a whisper, almost without sound, but they echoed like thunder. Olivia recoiled, seized by a mixture of fear and tenderness. "Emily. You don't have to answer. I just needed to say it." The guard approached, announcing that time was up. Olivia stood up slowly. With each step toward the door, she felt the weight of something unraveling inside her. She stopped before leaving, turned, and said only, "I'll be back tomorrow." But both knew that perhaps she wouldn't. In the following days, Olivia threw herself into her work with an almost feverish determination. She gathered evidence, rewrote petitions, sought support from colleagues willing to defend her integrity. The rain continued to fall almost every day, as if the weather reflected what they were living. Each drop seemed to remind her of Emily's touch, of the kiss that insisted on remaining. On the eve of the final hearing, Olivia received a short message on her phone. Asterisk, "If you can't come, I'll understand. But if you do, just look at me once." Asterisk. She typed a reply but deleted it before sending. She put the phone away, stood still for long minutes, watching the city's reflection in the windows. Then, she picked up her coat, took a deep breath, and left. On the other side of the gray wall, Emily was also preparing. Her hair was tied back, her uniform neat, her gaze firm. But inside, everything trembled. The rain, again, beat against the window bars, a familiar sound, almost a code between them. When the gate opened and the two saw each other, for a second the world hung suspended. The rest of the people moved, spoke, recorded, but between Olivia and Emily there was only silence and a look that said everything words could not. And, when the courtroom door closed behind them both, a loose sheet of paper escaped from Olivia's briefcase and got caught in the air current, fluttering until it fell to the floor. On it, scribbled in pencil, were just two words. Asterisk, after the verdict. Asterisk. The morning of the hearing dawned differently. The sky, after weeks of rain, was clear, as if fate itself had decided to grant a reprieve. Olivia arrived early at the courthouse, her briefcase in her hands, her heart racing. She had slept little, but felt something pulsing inside her with a clarity she had never known. Fear was no longer greater than love. When Emily entered under escort, the room's murmur silenced. She wore the beige uniform, but there was something new in her posture, firm, serene, almost luminous. Olivia looked up and, for a moment, the two looked at each other with the complicity of those who have already endured the worst and survived. The prosecutor presented his arguments, coldness in every word. But Olivia responded with surgical precision. She showed the messages, the inconsistencies, the false testimony of the ex-boyfriend who, under pressure, had confessed to fabricating evidence. Each argument was a step toward freedom, and when the judge announced the verdict, the world seemed to dissolve into a single sound. Not guilty. The air filled with murmurs, and Emily took a few seconds to understand. Olivia stood up, and the tears she had tried to hold back for weeks finally streamed down. When the guards removed the handcuffs, Emily took 2 steps toward her, and stopped, hesitant, remembering where they were. But it was Olivia who stepped forward. She simply held her hands, without words, and in that touch resided the entire story of the two of them, the waiting, the fear, the faith. Outside, the city seemed to breathe with them. The trees swayed in the light wind, the smell of wet asphalt still hung in the air. Olivia guided Emily to the car, the same one that had taken them to the first hearing. Neither of them spoke, the silence was too full. Halfway there, Emily asked, "Can you stop here?" They got out at a small park, hidden among old buildings. The leaves were still dripping with rain, and the lake reflected a sky that now seemed new. Emily took a deep breath, her face turned to the light. "I had forgotten what real air smells like." Olivia smiled. "It's cleaner than in my dreams." They walked side by side, unhurried. On a wooden bench, they sat down. Emily rested her head on Olivia's shoulder, a simple, yet absolute gesture. "You could have walked away. You could have let me be just another lost case. And missed the chance to know you." Olivia replied with a half-smile. "I think that would have been the biggest mistake of my life." Emily turned her face, her eyes moist. "I don't know what will become of us now." "Me neither," Olivia confessed. "But for the first time, I don't need to know." The wind blew, scattering small flower petals from the trees above them. They fell slowly, like soft snow. Emily reached out her hand, capturing one of them. "It feels like the world decided to be kind. Or perhaps we learned to see it that way," Olivia replied, her voice low. For a moment, they just watched the reflection on the water. The distant sound of the city, the rustling of leaves, the light touch of their intertwined hands. Then, Emily turned slowly, her eyes searching for Olivia's, and the kiss that came was calm, unhurried, the opposite of the first. There was no fear, no guilt, only the certainty that everything they had been through had led them there. When they parted, Emily laughed softly. "I think we just complicated everything again. Or perhaps, for the first time, we simplified it," Olivia replied, resting her forehead against Emily's. Time passed without them noticing. As the sun set, the park was tinged with gold. Emily stood up, took off her shoes, and stepped onto the still damp grass. Olivia watched her, enchanted by the lightness of that gesture, so simple and so free. "Remember the first day?" Emily asked, looking back. "That window, the rain, the cold." "I remember," Olivia replied. "And I remember that, even there, I already knew something in me would change forever." Emily smiled, walking back to her. "Then tell me, did it change?" Olivia took a deep breath, touching her face. Everything changed. The sun was already setting when they left the park. In the car, Emily rested her head against the window, watching the lights begin to turn on. The city's reflection in her eyes seemed like a promise, a new life being born where once there was only fear. Later, at home, Olivia opened the window. The rain had returned, fine, serene. The same rain that once symbolized guilt now fell like a blessing. She closed her eyes and, for a moment, swore she could smell Emily's hair, hear her laugh, feel the light touch on her fingers. Emily, in her new apartment, was doing the same. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she looked at the open window, letting the breeze in. On the table, a flower Olivia had given her at the courthouse, a white petal now somewhat dry, but still fragrant. She touched it carefully, as if it were a fragment of eternity. The sound of the rain united them, even though they were streets apart. The same rhythm, the same memory. The image was almost the same as the opening, the window, the sound of rain, the woman alone, but now the silence was not a prison. It was peace. Emily smiled. The impossible had happened, not just her freedom, but the rediscovery of herself, of love, and of the courage to believe. Because, in the end, perhaps love isn't about defeating destiny, but about choosing not to give up, even when all seems lost. If this story touched you, subscribe to Secret Garden Stories, leave your comment and share it with someone who needs to hear this today.